think it's just about time to start, Bill. Bill is going to lead us off and then he will be introducing our guest speaker. All righty?
Great. Well, hi, folks. I am not muted, so good. Hi, it's great to see everybody here, so many faces, and like Beth said, I'll encourage you to turn your video on at least at the beginning, and then again during the Q&A. It's great to see everybody. I'm delighted to be able to introduce our speaker this week. I've been working with Karen for about 4 years since I lured her into working with our HCIM capstone students, and we have she's not escaped yet. But I mean, if you know from Karen's bio, she's done a lot of work developing contextual design and contextual inquiry, but particularly over the past few years, her work on women in tech has been really interesting, and so I'm very happy to have her joining us today. She has a really a long and distinguished resume. She's an ACM. No, am I saying ACM? Yeah, ACM SIG-Chi Lifetime Award, among many other accomplishments. And I'm just delighted to have her here. One thing I particularly appreciate is that Karen has been working with our students over the past few years, and the opportunities that she's given all our students to do the research and mentoring them. We're really happy for that also. So Beth, unless there's anything else, I'm going to turn it over to Karen.
Great.
Welcome, Karen.
Hi, everybody. I would love to do real kind of connection. I miss working directly with the students, but we're going to talk today about the Valuing and Jerk project. And that is something that many UMD students and students from Nicholas University have worked on. And so I'm also excited to launch one of our key products today, and everything's up on the WitOps website. So let me share, and we'll see how long this takes. Hold on, and I'll give you all. And we are starting a new research project right now, so if you end up being interested, let me know. All right, so we're going to talk about the Valuing and Jerk project today, and we, of course, lovingly, we call this the Jerk project because it seems a lot more fun, but ultimately what we are trying to do is understand what's really going on. So let me give you a little bit of a background. Hold on, I need to get Zoom. Zoom is sticking its nose in my face. All right, let me give you a little bit background. About 9 years now, maybe ago, when we became aware that, well, partly because women would approach me at CHI and at other in other contexts and ask me, how do I walk into a room full of men? And then they would be upset about what was going on. And we saw more and more of this happening in our industry. And we knew that, sorry, I'm getting all these Zoom things beeping at me. We knew that women leave the industry 50% more often than men. Our industry, they do not leave doctors, lawyers, iBankers. They don't leave those industries. They leave our industry. And so as a result of that, we knew that there was something going on, because retention is very expensive for companies, but worse, we've been spending years trying to bring women into the industry. And if they come into the industry and then mid-career they leave, you know, we've got a big hole in our bucket. So at that time we started, of course, and one thing you should pay attention to is that we're using contextual design not for designing products. In all of the WitOps research, on all of the research that we're doing on issues around women in tech and as it relates to our industry. And just as I've always been interested in designing processes and that people can use and will change the way they work, that's what contextual design is. I'm interested in not esoteric issues around what is this research? I mean, we do research, right? But what we want is practical solutions. And that's what WitUps is all about. How do we use deep dive research in order to create practical solutions that can make change? And all of the ops, of which the Valiant and Jerk op is one, is about this. So if you want to catch up on it, you can see that we have identified the key factors that we need to have in our organizations to retain women in tech. That's the at-work experience framework. We then did quantitative research, and Nicola worked with me on some of that in order to get the at-work experience measure. So some of the things you'll hear, some of our statistics are from that. And then, of course, we have all kinds of interventions. And right now, many of the solutions are actually up on the WitUps website, because I use this as a date to get things out there. So you'll be able to take a look at and try these things. And of course, have been iterated with real managers and people in organizations. So just to give you a little bit of background on WitUps, the other thing I want to mention is that all of the work at WitUps is done by worldwide volunteers. There is no money, everybody just helps. And, you know, if any of you end up wanting to participate, just let me know. So let's talk about the Valiant and Jerk project. And, you know, what was going on? What motivated it? Well, as we said, women are leaving 50% more often than men. In our research, in our surveys, we also found that 49% of women feel invisible and not heard. And that about that same percent are thinking of leaving. When they are thinking of leaving, they also score lower on measures of their overall team experience, amongst other things. So there's something going on in the psychodynamics in the team. If we take a look at the literature, we have lots of years of literature reporting negative interactions at work, where 50% of women in STEM experience greater gender discrimination than in non-STEM, or than do men. And we also know that a male-dominated workplace, again, in this research and in a variety of surveys, that it is associated with, it is perceived as, experienced as more harassing, more hostile. And so that creates more stress and it creates more turnover. Now, what we also have to know, because remember, I'm part of the second wave women's movement. So when women were coming to me and being upset about what was going on, I was like, are you kidding? I thought we did this, you know, 30, 40 years ago when we all entered the industry, but we aren't done, yes? And so you need to understand that all of the years of diversity training started back when I was young, when I was your age, right? Younger. And here we are today. Women are still judged less competent in our industry than men, even by women. None of the diversity training really impacts change. So we can train, we can keep another 40 years of training, but that kind of intervention isn't going to help. So if issues of culture and issues of how we are treated, we have a lot of, if you would, anecdotal reporting. Oh, I don't want to be in a bro culture. Men are like this. Oh, they're discriminatory. I hate them, right? So I've been hearing this for years. And because I'm very grounded in data, I said, okay, what if we could actually find out what behaviors were considered valuing, what behaviors were considered, we would call you a jerk. What if we could just identify these behaviors and work on the behaviors? Because saying you're a this and you're a that and all the kind of things we say, I'm bullied on, these words don't have real meaning. So what if we gave them meaning? And that's really what this project is about. To identify the specific behaviors that create or undermine the experience of connection and value, and then create targeted change, in this case for interpersonal dynamics. We have other interventions for other things. This one is addressing our issues around interpersonal dynamics and the psychodynamics that occur in the workplace. Now, of course, we started with field research. So with the UMD students and others, we did 26 field interviews with men and women because we want to understand the behaviors for men and women, and always in our target audience of 25 to 45. And just to answer the question that's always in the air, why do I target that audience? Because that if we say that women are leaving mid-career, that's the target. we got to get you early and make things work early. Those of us who have outlasted whatever experiences we had, we've come to terms with it. So this is our core population. And of course, it includes development, research, design, product, people managers, directors. We did all of these. Now, following that, we did a survey, and the survey took our 15 valuing behaviors and 15 jerk behaviors, and we asked the questions to see if there was any relative importance. And so we've just finished the latest piece of this survey. I think you can still go out and take it. And so far we've done, it's 104 people worldwide. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is the key behaviors as we have put them together into, frankly, one of my most favorite interventions. And so you'll see what it is in a moment. But before I do that, I want to do a big thank you. I hope I haven't left out any UMD students, but none of this would happen without these people, okay? And a special thank you from me to Peter, who's our visual designer from FINRA, and he did the poster design, and you're going to see these posters today. And they are now up on the website, able to be downloaded. The new project that we're just starting, because now we're all working remote, is to ask the question, what's the impact of remote work on women in tech? What is going on? Has it changed the psychodynamics? So we're about to launch it, and if you want to participate, you got to let me know. All right, now I'm going to give you a little bit of idea of what that initial data looked like where are the behaviors? What's the domain that people are talking about these behaviors? The first set of behaviors has to do with what people say and do around what my skill is, or opinions around my job role. How you feel about my skill, how you communicate to me about what I am doing. Those behaviors are very critical. The second area, and this I think our initial research is that this is actually even more important to people, is whether or not people, their managers, their teammates are taking time to help them in the work. We're not talking about necessarily making a social relationship, although that is important to women in the technology community as well. But we're talking about, are you taking the time in partnership with me to do the work? So we'll talk about that. And the third area has to do with the fact that we have a certain set of expected behavior. Now, interestingly, of course, what is considered appropriate behavior is impacted by your country culture and your family culture. And of course, I've been coaching people worldwide for, years and years and years and years. And the student population is also, very multi-ethnic, if you would. So we all hold the idea of what we think expected behavior is, social behavior and professional behavior. And anytime we see people violating that, we're not so happy, okay? So let's talk about how we can think about these behaviors and a little bit about how we can make change. And we're going to start with our valuing behaviors because we're trying to make more valuing behaviors. If we want to change what's going on in the workplace, we need more valuing and we need less jerk behavior. Now, I don't like to do anything if I don't give you a task. So I sure hope you have a piece of paper in front of you because I want you to take notes. We're going to start with valuing. And here is one of our posters. We have a vertical and horizontal poster. These are the combined posters of all of our characters, as well as individual character posters. So we're going to go through these guys first and talk about what it means to be valuing. And as we do that, I want you to think and ask yourself, are you feeling devalued? Are you feeling invisible? Of all these behaviors, which ones do you think you're missing? Which valuing behaviors are really the most important to you? And which ones aren't you doing enough of? Are you doing them all? What aren't you doing? What are you doing? And particularly if you're in a position of power over other people, or you're in a collaborative relationship with other people, even on your capstone team, what do you need to do more of? So think about that. And I want you to write it down. So you'll give yourself a little bit of a scorecard and a plan by the time we're done with this. All right, so here is our first character. Now what we did is we took our 15 behaviors, and we grouped things together that seemed to go together, okay? And we turned them into these fabulous character posters where we're using animals in order to represent the attributes of the people. So the coach is our top valuing character, but because it embodies the valuing behaviors that are most important to both men and women. In general, this is a more experienced person. It doesn't have to be your manager, right? It can just be a more experienced person in your field. But it's the idea that they are taking time to help me, right? Because if you take your time, you are implicitly saying that I am worth your time. So what are they taking the time to do? To help, to guide, very often to partner on solving hard problems or doing hard projects. The excellent coach, just by saying, ask me questions, particularly for new hires and young people, when they are able to ask their questions and not feel like they're being pushed away because there's some annoyance. Very important. It's a statement of value. They listen and understand your work or a personal need. So listening is part of this. They help the person learn, and they help them find and then lean on their strengths. So if there's a situation, they don't offer, advice to fix yourself. They help you reflect so that you can think about what to do. When they're giving feedback, they give the feedback straightforward, calmly, with respect, and a desire to help. Now, keep in mind, this does not mean that they're going to tell you you're wonderful all the time. We live in a feedback, industry. You have to be able to take feedback and iterate your work and your behavior on your team or with others continuously for success. The question is, how does that feedback come across? Okay. So these are the characters of the coach, and you can ask yourself, do you have more experience than someone else? Are you in a power position? Are you being a coach? Are you getting enough coaching? Let's look at the next guy. Okay, this is the reward master. I happen to super love this poster because I super love the idea of the carrot, giving a carrot, right? Because at the center of the reward master is a tangible reward for my contributions. I know you're good and I'm going to give you a reward. Now, the top reward for many people, a very important valuing behavior, is being promoted. So that isn't too surprising, right? But you can also give other rewards like a bonus, or often in companies you have spot rewards for colleagues, right? For a job well done. Oh, I see my typo. Trips or conferences as recognition, awards for a special job. Money says you're good, right? And that's what many of these things are about. But what matters for the reward master, and we'll talk about that more here, is the idea of promotion as one of its top values. Okay, who's next? This is the consummate professional, and the next few of these are sort of equal value to people. The consummate professional is somebody who, I don't even know how to say it, they basically engage in professional behavior all of the time. So a top thing is they communicate work expectations clearly. Now you'll notice in the consummate professional that underneath this is a lot of issues around how you treat my time. If you communicate your expectations clearly, then it means I do the job right, and it means I don't make a lot of mistakes and have to redo it. So I'm not wasting my time. People show up for meetings prepared, they deliver their work on time, or they let someone know if they've got some issue. They understand that other people are depending on their work and their participation. So underneath all of this is this respect for time and the fact that people have lives outside of work. So this is the core of the consummate professional, and it goes without saying that everyone is treated the same regardless of gender, race, skill level, which is a big thing, right? I have less skill or job type, okay? So the consummate professional is who you want to strive to be in the workplace and when interacting with others. Just by doing those behaviors, you are implicitly stating that the person is of value. So the grateful maker, the grateful implementer. So when we are making things together, the grateful maker is acknowledging that they're building on somebody else's work. They are requesting my participation in a project or asking me to lead. They are giving me a challenge and I don't have to ask for it. The idea here is if you use my work, if you use my ideas, then I know I'm contributing and I know I'm of value. And acknowledging that on top of it makes it even better. So acknowledgement of my contribution is important. But what we also have to learn is that it's a valuing behavior just to use my work, not to say, use the work and then say, you did it, but just build on it. If everybody is building on your ideas in your team, we don't all have to stop and tell you what a great idea it is. You know it's a great idea because we're all doing it. We have a lot of discussion in the industry about people stealing ideas. This did not really come up a lot in our research. But what did come up is the value of using the work and acknowledging that I helped, okay? So I want us to think about that. Okay, I love this thank you, Maven. You know, thank you goes a long way. We saw over and over that direct, straightforward, verbal appreciation of my skill or behavior is just, you know, it can't get better, okay? Whether you send an email telling me I did a great job or you stood up in front of a group meeting, these are all behaviors, by the way, that come from our data, all of them, and acknowledge that I made a contribution. It's a great thing to tell senior management about it or to compliment the team that I'm managing. This, I know this guy, okay? There is a person in our industry who is the epitome of the thank you maven. No, after important meetings or almost any meeting, he sends out little thank you notes to people that were presenting or running things. He does spot bonuses for them. He thinks about the idea of appreciation. Now, of course, if all we do is appreciate, but we never get promoted or responsible things, then, you know, that's not enough. But I, myself, when I think about all these characters here, I think, you know, I could probably work on being more appreciative. And once I started actually working with the students, I had to work on that. And I hope I did a better and better job of it. Because our industry and the beginning of our industry, people are just like, you know, we're using your work, we're doing it. We didn't think back 30, 40 years ago to bother acknowledging. Acknowledgement was working together. But increasingly, we need to be able to do that kind of thing. So acknowledgement boosts confidence, but it also says, hey, you belong, you're a member. And if you are in an underrepresented population, you're thinking about that a lot. And so explicitly telling you, anytime someone has less power or less influence is a way of elevating. So our last one is our champion, Mr. Lyon. And this is a more senior person, might be your manager's manager. Sometimes it's your manager. They are going to advocate up for your ideas, for your career, for whatever your issues are if you're having issues. They are going to showcase your work to senior management, make them aware of it. They might ask you to speak publicly, but they will push you to take risks and then give you air cover so that, you know, if you fail, it's okay. That's part of what it means to be a champion. They are involved in guiding your career. And again, this is an issue around somebody who has more power and influence taking their time for you. That's a straight up communication of value. So these characters are representing what value means to the people that we work with. And what we can see is when people are actively appreciating, whether it's by giving their time or saying great job, we know that that's value. When they ignore that, when we're ignoring and we're getting nothing back, we feel devalued. But when you actively devalue somebody, that's when we start calling you a jerk. Okay? All right. Now, once we did our survey and we have results from women and men, we actually found significant differences between women and men, which is kind of interesting. So as I said before, the coach is the top set of valuing behaviors. And this is the statement of the behavior right in here. A manager or more senior coworker helps coaches or partners. That's the behavior that's in the survey. These are the behaviors. And these behaviors are the top valuing behaviors for everybody. But they are more important for women. And it's important for us to see what really matters for women if we are going to, ask ourselves, what am I doing, right? All right, so the coach is showing a difference. Now, interestingly, the consummate professional, particularly around communicating expectations, status, or needs in a timely way, so people can adjust. This is important for both, but more important for women. The grateful implementer, valued by both, but more valued by women. And what is it? Being acknowledged for their contribution to the project, that piece of it. The champion is valued by both, but more valued by women, having to do with advocating for someone's ideas, careers, or issues. And in the reward master, it's important to note that pretty much it's not that important, but especially for women, except for the piece of promotion. So don't think that you can give a bonus and that's going to be enough. So all of these behaviors are about relationship, and you can ask yourself, I hope you've been looking, what you can do. Another thing for us to realize is that valuing behavior is really important for women. In the survey, we used a 5-point scale. 6 of the 15 behaviors for women scored above a 4, and even seriously above a 4. But none of the top scores for men scored above a 4. So women are very sensitive to issues around value. All right, so take a breath, ask yourself, how are you doing? What do you really need? And we're going to go on to the jerks. And here's our horizontal jerk poster, bringing everything together. You can get all of these posters on the website right now. And let's think about this together. Which of these behaviors undercut you the most? Which make you angry? Which are accepted in your organization as okay, or by yourself as okay? So I want you to be as honest about jerk behavior as you are about valuing behavior. So here we go. This is the most hated jerk behavior, yelling. I don't know how to make this any more clear. It's like yelling and in the public and criticizing someone loudly in a meeting, in the hall, talking about their shortcomings in a loud tone of voice. That's why we call him the megaphone mocker. What else does he do? Inappropriate or foul language, right? That's offensive to coworkers. And at the center of this is an implicit intention to humiliate the person. This is unfortunately often coming from someone who has more power than the person that they are yelling at. In the end, this is a straight up Denial of my value. It is a pushing away. It is saying you don't belong. It is, you're gone. I'm going to yell so much until I can make you disappear. We have to start thinking about this yelling behavior. And let me tell you something. I've been in this industry a long time. Yelling happened a lot when I was first in the industry. People would have little tantrums all over the place. And they would say, they're so smart. Well, yeah, that's not good, but they're so smart. So I think we're at a point today where we have to go, no. Okay, can we please be grown-ups? We're not going to yell. We don't yell at we shouldn't be yelling at our kids. We shouldn't be yelling at our spouses, but wow, we should not be yelling at our coworkers. So let's think about what we can do with yelling. Now, the demeanor is hardly better. The demeanor isn't quite so loud, but they're still saying my work, your ideas, your job role. Particularly, we have other research that shows that people who have a UX degree feel that they're less satisfied with their work environment. Nicole and I did a poster on this. And some job titles, like developers, are simply of more worth in an organization than others. So if someone demeans your role or say, we don't need research, design is stupid, right? That is being a demeanor. They're effectively saying it's not worth consideration or your work is substandard. And I will tell you that our data has reports of managers truly telling their employees that their work is substandard and not worth consideration. But another part of that is that they're not even trying. They're not trying to understand it. They're not trying to understand the ideas. They're pushing it away. They might listen, but they're like, you know, tapping their feet, or they turn off their screen and you can hear them typing in the remote environment. Maybe they're just critical all of the time. And particularly in an academic, this is coming from academic data, where the professor redoes the work of a PhD student without providing any feedback, any opportunity to learn or improve. That's a good example of, you know, denying their worth or their skill. So this is undercutting self-confidence. So, you know, we don't want to be a demeanor. All right, now, the decision dominator, and it took us a while to find the right bull, because this bull, because this stuff happens most of the time in meetings, they're just gonna take over the meeting. They won't listen to anyone's point of view. They want their way or the highway. They talk all of the time. They make all of the decisions. They decide everything about the direction. And no matter what others try to say, whether it's about data or standard practice or how things are important, they are not having it. As far as they're concerned, they're there to take a hammer and beat you down with their, you know, continuous talk until you all just give up and do it their way. So the decision dominator is exhausting. Exhausting. And it means that we can't be creative. We can't bring ideas together. We can't consider things. It's a big push away for all of the employees. And it's like saying, well, why are you bothering to work here? Because I'm the only one that matters. So watch out. This can happen, particularly with somebody who is more important in those meetings, or somebody who just thinks that they're more important. All right, now look, these are in order that we think are relatively the worst hated ones. And I didn't think time waster was going to be up here, but it is. And this is, time waster is kind of the opposite of the consummate professional. And we had so much data on issues around time and time wasting. Whether that's not communicating work status or the need for help. So now nobody knows that your work isn't done. Nobody knows you're in trouble. Nobody knows that you're not even going to show up for a meeting. You don't tell anyone. You just show up late. You show up unprepared. You ignore emails. You ignore requests from collaborators. You're basically wasting everyone's time. We're, you know, in the days of a conference room, we're sitting in the conference room waiting for that late person, or we thought we were going to move on and get something done. So the time waster is just intensely inconsiderate, but also, is not forwarding the action. Now, managers can waste time too. If they ask for work and then don't look at it, then they're saying you don't matter, right? And if they don't communicate their expectations clearly, and work has to be redone. Now, managers can also just be a straight up time waster, because if the manager is always late, and we worked with several managers who tried out things using our posters, and one of them said, well, with chagrin, I had to realize that I was late. We all are doing something. We have to think, what is it that we're doing? But the time waster, I mean, this is just straight up rude. And we can do something about this behavior. This is on us. The values violator, they break the rules. So remember I said to you that we have this expectation of what we think is professional or appropriate behavior. And this came to us because the values violator, it's like, if you go along with the rules, we kind of don't notice it. But if you are breaking the implicit social expectations for collaboration, for example, if you are explicitly breaking corporate policy, like it doesn't apply to you, if you are part of a team but don't act like you're part of a team, if, there was a great story about a student who thought somehow that the percents that a test was worth didn't apply to him, and so didn't want it to be considered. It's like, hello, we have rules of how we operate. So the values violator is somebody that is simply breaking our idea of proper behavior. And, we really don't want to have anything to do with them. Yeah. And our last character is the role stomper, like a big elephant stepping on you. And the role stomper is somebody who, whether they know it or not, they may not really know it. You have a job, and somehow they're taking over your job. They're making decisions, whether you used to do that job, and so people keep asking you to do it, which was one case, and you don't say, oh, but that's not my job anymore. And if you keep answering the questions and making the decisions, if you don't include the new person in the meetings, you're stomping on their role. If you're the user researcher, another story, and you're never invited to the product meetings, and they are making decisions in a context in which a user researcher ought to be included, then you're stomping on their role. Anytime you take on the responsibilities that belongs to somebody else, you're not giving them the opportunity, and you undercut, again, it's a push away, their feeling of belonging, of self-confidence, and that they're doing value. Yeah. So, and I had a great story where two really close friends got really pissed off at each other in the workplace. Okay, they were friends in the workplace. And when I listened to the story, I said, well, it sounds like you're dealing with role stomping. And I described it, and they're like, well, that's exactly what it was. So he thought he was doing it, she thought she was doing it. They all got mad at each other. And so we introduced this concept, and they were able to talk to each other and sort out who was going to be responsible for what, instead of just being pissed. A lot of times, if we just get aware of what is going on with the behaviors that are problematic for us, we can do something about it. And keep in mind, look, everyone is a jerk some of the time. You know when you've done stuff that's inappropriate. You have an internal monitor of what isn't okay, and that's what apologies were invented for. If you take responsibility and you make a commitment not to do that anymore, then, people are generous. Yeah. All right. So how about men and women? All these behaviors are bad. Okay. But it's worse by gender. And the megaphone mocker, yelling is by far, I just can't even, express how bad yelling about people's behavior is, but it is especially bad for women. For the demeanor, interestingly, it's worse for men. So this statement describing someone's work or ideas as substandard, not worthwhile, or not consideration is at the top of the list for men, but in the middle for women. And the time waster, this was another one that was really interesting to me. Ignoring emails, requests, and calls is one of the worst behaviors for men, but it's in the middle for women. So, you know, jerk behavior in the end is about acceptable behavior. And think about it. Think about your group. Think about what you are willing to accept. So now I want you to take a look, and I hope you have written down something you want to do more for valuing and something you want to do less for jerk. And let's talk a little bit about, okay, what kind of interventions and changes can we have? And you start with yourself, right? You reflect. What valuing behavior matters to you? Well, tell people. People aren't going to know, right? What valuing behavior do you have to work on? Pick one, work on it. Make a little scorecard and give yourself a little star every time you do, for example, more appreciation. What jerk behavior do you have to work on? Work on it. You know, make yourself a money box. Every time you do a jerk behavior, be sure you apologize and stick your dollar in the box, right? What do you have to work on in your team? You can raise these issues if you share as a consummate professional with your managers, professionals, or your team. Yelling and screaming about stuff, it rarely makes change. The consummate professional style, when you let people know, does. So, you know, create some personal growth goals. And now go out here, there's the website. Go out to the Valuing and Jerk or just the WitOps website, and you'll be able to download the posters. You could do a little exercise. Watch this video, which will be up in a few days, and then run a little mini workshop, which we had some managers try just for an hour. Start with valuing behavior, then do jerk. It could be 2 meetings, right? So ask people, you know, if this is done in Miro or something like that, to write a note of which characters matter most to them. Give them 3, their top 3, then sort it like a little affinity. And then you'll find out what people care about in your group. Then you can discuss it, do some design ideas, and see how you can become more valuing. And then you're going to do just the same thing with the jerk, right? What jerk characters do you hate the most, right? Take a look at it, evaluate if it's happening in your group, and maybe, you know, you can start brainstorming what you can do about it. And hang up the posters. You can hang them up on real walls. You can hang them up in Miro. We also have emojis and stickers, also physical stickers, only for valuing. We find in general, we want to reward valuing. We do not want to tell, you know, finger point constantly at jerk behavior. That is not going to change it. You know, you maybe want to pay attention to the person you think is a jerk, and anytime they do something positive, you reward that, right? So we've got some valuing emojis with our valuing characters. You can stick them in, you know, inside of your chats. When people are presenting, you can send them a sticker. Yeah, you can do this. That's what they're there for. And of course, we've been starting to take a look at remote work in general. I've done a number of talks on this. What can we do in our remote environment? Well, keep your video on. If you keep your video on, it says, "You matter, speaker. I am listening to you. You are not some side TV show." That is a statement of valuing. You can put your appreciations right in the chats, like I said, and smiley faces, emojis. You can spread value. You can purposely ask members in a physical environment or in some other round robin way to send valuing notes and mix it up so everybody is focused on valuing in your team. You can encourage coaching for the coach by working in pairs with senior junior partnerships in the collaborative tools. And you can drop in and see how people are doing and share the appreciation and answer questions. All right, what about jerk? Show yourself in the video. We find in our research that when we see ourselves, it's like looking in a mirror and we want to be our best self. So, you know, we don't pick our nose. And if you're going to start screaming and being obnoxious, what if I started yelling at you, right? You'd see your own face coming at you. You'd see yourself being inappropriate, and you would stop yourself short. Watching yourself in a meeting is a good way to think about your own behavior. Or agree to a no yelling policy. And a facilitator, a manager, somebody who you've agreed to might, gently say, to a private message, maybe you're raising your voice too much. We also find that jerk behavior is mitigated when we have a well-run meeting. The more chaotic a meeting, the more we don't think through how we're running it, and I've got many talks on this, you open the door to more misunderstanding and jerk behavior. And think about using a timekeeper, 3 minutes per participation, no more, unless you're the presenter and you've got an agreed upon time. Or listen and make sure everyone's participating in decisions. You can ask people to individually put their ideas into a collaborative document and then decide, so that the loudest person in the room doesn't push the decision. In the end, the more you articulate your rules of engagement or put it in these valuing things in a team manifesto, the more you make it conscious, the more you can affect the interpersonal dynamics of people. And here's another idea from my students. We call it the Batman jar, where the team is the superhero. This is the Batman jar. You can use it in Miro itself. And there's a word cloud to stimulate thinking. And then people can write their notes and put them in the jar of things that you think the team should talk about that aren't really working so well, or even appreciation things. Then weekly, you pull them out for discussion. If you can set it up to be anonymous, even better, right? And then you iterate and you improve your practices, or you update your commitments in the team manifesto. And then when you're back in the face-to-face, we were planning to put this into the second floor open space. And then pandemic hit, this great poster on the wall with the falling down Post-its and a real jar on the bottom with real Post-its, and then everybody could talk about it. I think we did a one iteration with last year's capstone team. So there are things we have thought about, but you can think about more things. What else could you do? What can you do that will work? Not what can you do that will make you feel good because you could scream about it, okay? So think about it. These are the behaviors that we know from our data matter. Let's work on what we know matter. We can worry about the rest later on. So this is a good example of what WitOps does, cultural design by change. We are going to work next on the issues of remote work, and this can be an opportunity depending on how we understand what's going on. We organize our interventions in terms of key processes like team onboarding, which we now have documents for you, and the critique, how to run a critique, managing the interpersonal, the JERK project is part of that, and then our sneak attacks, we have games, and we are looking at how to hang change onto our processes such as Agile. The point here is to think about practical solutions that will work. And I will give a little shout out. Nicola and I are writing a book about all of this, and you can get the first chapter for free and download the introductory chapter in the Morgan Claypool, on the Morgan Claypool site right here. So join us. We're using contextual techniques. We're using them differently than if you do in a product, but we are still understanding what's going on with deep knowledge of the people and their behavior, and then organizing that data and using it to drive practical innovation. So that is the Valuing and JERK project. And with that, I will stop sharing, and I can see you, or I can see some of you anyway. And if there's questions, I don't know your question thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Hi, Karen. Thank
Hi.
you for that, Karen. I will see some applause. Thank you for doing that. We're all
And
getting.
I hope you had fun, and I hope you love these posters because I super love the poster.
Yeah. There's been a healthy healthy conversation going on in the chat window, and I know several folks have posted some questions in there. If you have questions, please go ahead and post in the chat window, or you can raise your hand in the participants link, and I'll call on you. I've seen a few questions coming up. I think Caro had a few questions. Some of them I got answered, but I'm gonna give her the floor first, and then see who else has questions. So Caro.
Thank you, Karen. This was amazing. It's just like you gave me language for things that I feel like I've been experiencing throughout my whole life, and I never put together that way. So just thank you.
Thank you. That's what we like to hear.
I don't even know if you saw my video while you were presenting, but there were moments when I was just like, like I remember being that person, or I've had that jerk in my work life before. And yeah, so it's just like, it resonated and was beautiful. So thank you. And I have a bunch of questions. I'm going to try to figure out which ones are most useful for this audience. So I guess I have two, and they both like keeping with the theme of practicality. One is like, how might peers in a group, like in a team project for a class, give rewards for work well done to each other, since money's not really a thing? And then the other one was also about values, which is like, I'm a faculty member, so time delayed value, like did my paper get in, did I get the grants, or working with students, and I don't want to make them make me feel better, and I don't really have a manager or a boss. So how do I reward myself, or who do I tell value me? Tell me you value me.
So frankly, I focus, we did have some academic data, by the way, but the academic community is a very different kind of community than the product community. But I want to be, I have worked with Bill directly with the capstone students on creating team manifestos. So the issue of how to deal with things that look like a team in your classroom is, for example, I don't know if you're still doing it, Bill, but we start with a little discussion where everyone writes on Post-its, what does it mean to be rude? And then they share that with each other, and then they become surprised because different cultures, have a different response, but that raises their consciousness. And when they make their team manifesto, they can have things that are interpersonal. Or you can use this video and say, hey, what should we add to our rules of engagement? Frankly, if you're going to have classes with groups in them, I think you need to have agreed upon rules of engagement, because it just raises it up that how we treat each other matters, and what we will tolerate and what we will not tolerate. I've always imagined, so I want to invite you to experiment with it, is if somebody is, for example, let's take yelling, okay? Yelling is pretty clear. We can all know what it is. So the question would be, say you're in a group meeting and somebody starts yelling. What would happen if everybody just stood up? Just, boom. It's like, hello, you're yelling. We don't have to yell at you about yelling. That's kind of silly, right? So I want to invite you to think, but when we have visioned, I can't even tell you how many visions we've tried to vision for modulating jerk behavior. And every time it all ends up being that you want to do something mean to them like this. You're a bad guy, you're a bad guy, you're a bad guy. So the jerk behavior has to be self-reflective, or it has to be something that looks like, we are a community. You engage in yelling, you're out. It's like, goodbye, go to your room until you can behave appropriately. If you agree to that way of behaving, then you can do it. Well, what about valuing? Well, I just gave you a whole bunch of fun little emojis and stickers. So you can be sending them to each other. Young people like to do that anyway. And we also talked about the idea, let's say you have 5 people in your little group. You don't want to say, you have to say something positive about somebody, because then everybody will only talk about, not everyone will get included. So you don't want to do that. You want to say, you are paired in this meeting and you are paired, and keep moving the pairs, and you have to say something positive about whoever you were paired with. So the more you focus on the positive, it's like straight up reinforcement theory, right? The more you focus on the positive, the more positive you're going to be. So I don't know if I answered everything, but I've forgotten anything else.
Thanks, Karen. I'll mention that in the HCIM capstones, we still do use the manifestos. We still do have them talk about their own values as a starting point to building their own team dynamics, and that's been working pretty well.
Yeah, I want to add on, actually, this probably came from you this summer, Bill, and I'm one of the instructors of 362, and it's all team stuff, and there's, what, 250 students in that, and we all have a version of values and team contracts. So thank you,
That's
Karen.
great.
And
You know, now you have the video.
Yeah. So who else had a question in there? S. Walsh, I'm not sure if you're still there, but somebody asked, has WinOps identified successful techniques for dealing with the different jerk behaviors? We touched on that a little bit, but
I don't, like I said, we're trying anything that looks like a process check and contextual design, of which the Batman jar is another example, is a way to make the group responsible, and also to have the notion, oh, I know what I didn't answer about the professors, but let's see. We can talk about that offline. I don't think I know you. The idea is that you're responsible as a group for how your group is doing, both in terms of getting the project done, but also in terms of the interpersonal dynamics. So often things degrade or they become chaotic in meetings or in contexts in which you are not using a decent process. I have talked endlessly about the need for more process, not less. Okay, so the more you're trying to play who's on top, and I'm yelling and you're yelling, and my idea, you know, if you don't have an organized way to do a critique, if you don't have an organized way to proceed, and of course, contextual design is an organized way. Every single design meeting tells you what to do, right? And what the rules of engagement are. But you don't have to use that. Use something else. But if you have none, I promise you, you will behave more jerky in that meeting, okay? And so we know that. Nicole and I have looked at this literature. Structure for freedom. You have to accept that you don't like it, and it's too bad. Because if you want to get along and move forward, you need more structure.
So we're coming down the wire, but we've still got time. I'm going to call on Ben. He had his hand up.
Hey, Ben.
Hi, Karen. Great to see you. Really, you're continuing to be creative and find new directions. This was wonderful. Those six positive and 6 negative behaviors were really interesting examples. What I want to pursue is let's focus on HCIL. I mean, I think a lot of good behaviors happen at HCIL. There's a lot of valuing of other people's work. But I'm wondering what else you might comment from your experience and from this community. What are the ways? Do inspirational role models, do people behaving well spread more effectively than people behaving poorly or not? And how can we even build a better community? I think things like the clinics, the paper clinics, where people devote themselves to helping each other. That's really admirable. And I see it very different from computer science, for example, where there's a sort of low-grade competitiveness everywhere. So, but let's talk about HCIL and what we can do better.
Well, first of all, I'd encourage you to just have a follow-up meeting with HCIL members, because why not do my little workshop exercise? Everybody write what 3 valuing behaviors are top, and then you can ask whether HCIL is doing it, right? I mean, we know that the coach, and particularly in an academic setting, is going to be very important. But that, you know, there's 2 things with the coach. One, it's a senior-junior partnership, but the senior could also just be, for example, the year 2 HCIM students are more senior to the year 1, and there could be a partnership there, right? In HCIL, are you partnering people so they can improve? As a group, you're providing feedback, but what if the student doesn't know how to deal with that? What if they're taking it as critique? What if they really don't know how to write a paper, right? I mean, there's lots of stuff in there, and I think you should just talk to your community. The other thing that I would say is HCIL thinks of itself as a community. Do you have a team manifesto? Do you have rules of engagement that were created by the people? Not one you downloaded from the do-gooder various sites in the universe and adopt. I mean something that's yours. And you could redo that every year because that would create consciousness. The other thing I would say is academia, you're going to fight with me about this, but going back to the first question, academia is more of an individual. You don't work in teams as much as professors. And so the result is that you're always in a kind of, the team is the students, but you're the boss. And then who's going to make, who's going to hold you accountable? Well, in HCIL, there's a bunch of professors. Well, are you helping and coaching each other? Are you doing it on purpose? Do you have, if you would, mentoring circles that the professors are mentoring each other, and then a kind of mentoring circle where you can have the professors with some of the select people who want to be academics, and you'd have something else for those of you who want to be professionals. All of the idea of taking time to value me, right? You start with that principle of the coach and you see where you can go. But yeah, you have to treat yourself like you're a collaborative group. And then a lot of these things I think will matter. And I mean, frankly, remember, it's valuing from the consummate professional to give straightforward, helpful feedback. And I've encouraged Bill and all the programs to please make the students get feedback endlessly in every course, because you have to get used to the idea that you will never produce anything perfect. No one, not me, not anyone. I already found 4 typos. And how many times have I looked at this slideshow? Okay. So we are an iterative organization. There's none of us perfect, and there's nobody more important. And I also have learned a lot of things from young people and students. And so we need a little bit of humility. Yeah. All right.
Bravo.
That's my last speech. I think we're past.
Yes, I like the idea of a communal, writing of a short team manifesto of what we do. And we do have many admirable things, but sure, we could be better. And I think the interaction and support for each other, student to student, faculty to faculty, are good ones. So thank you.
Great.
Thank you. I see that we're at 1:33, so I'm going to wrap up, and I'm going to take, I'm going to just, as a facilitator, I'm going to take the opportunity to say thank you for Karen, and thank you everybody for being here. We had like over 60 people here, which is great. And,
yes, and if you want to help, I think Nina, are you there? Just send me mail if you want to help on the next project, because nothing gets done. Nothing gets done at WitUps if you and people like you don't do it. That's just the way it is. Nicola usually helps with quant. I do lots of qual. We do many, many things together. And so, if you want to get involved, this next piece is going to be kind of important, because I think we're going to be living in this world for a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
so
right.
if you're interested, talk to Karen. And Beth, do you have any other final things to wrap us up with?
Thank you. The actual attendance total was 77. Each week
Cool.
we've been growing, but this has been a tremendous attendance. So thank you so much, Karen. And I wanted to give you a little preview for next week, as we always do. Heidi Fang from Towson University is going to be speaking. Her talk is Arm Strokes, using mobile technology to support everyday stroke rehabilitation. Jonathan Lazar is the host. He's the one that nominated her to speak, and we're really looking forward to her talk. We are very happy to have all of you. Please tell everybody, more the merrier, and we'll continue on. So thank you very much for coming today.
Great. Bye-bye. I'm just looking at the chat, so I'm going to take a minute.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Karen.
Karen.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
And by the way, someone asked if I do presentations like this outside. Yes, but this will also be free.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, see you later.
I just wanted to say,
Bill,
go ahead.
Yeah.
Kwan Ki Chen asked if there was any requirements for the volunteers. I don't know who that is, but
Do you have, Beth, do you have their info?
Oh, she is actually one of my cohort in HCIL.
Ah,
I'm here.
ah, you're still here.
what?
Excellent.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wonder if there are any requirements for being a volunteer. I was
Well,
just
do you-
looking
have
at the
you
website.
got any, what program are you in?
HCIM.
So you're
And are you a first year?
Yeah.
Okay, I've got a few other, it's user research. We'll be doing user research. So if you want to participate, just send me email and Bill knows, or send it to Bill and he'll forward it and we'll let you know. We do, she's learning CD, right, in her first class.
You're in Wayne's class, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So she's learning CI.
So, I'll retrain a little bit. And we have a whole way we onboard people who participate and then you'll see, okay?
Thank you.
All righty. Okay, guys, talk to you later.
Thanks, Karen.
Karen,
Bye, all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Richie and Francis, thank you so much. You guys were awesome as usual.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
No
no news is good news. Everything goes so smoothly. I'm going to say goodbye. I'm actually driving to New Jersey right now. I waited for this to finish, but
Oh,
yeah, I know, right?
okay. Well,
Okay.
safe
All right,
trip.
see you later.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Have a safe
Okay,
trip.
bye.